morning and welcome to the Wright County Board meeting of November 21st, 2017. We'll begin this morning with our Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you again for coming. We're ready to begin here. The minutes from November 14th. Has anyone had a chance to look at that? Chris, how many?
Yeah, I didn't find typos, but
Really?
I don't know if I didn't read it real well.
Are you sure you read them?
I'm kidding.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I second.
Motion by, you know what, I have to find a pen that writes. Okay, motion by Commissioner Biden, second by Commissioner Houston. Further discussion. Lee, did you have anything?
No, I do not.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion minutes are approved. The review of the agenda for today and approval.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to accept today's agenda if there's no additions.
I'll second that.
Mr. Chair?
Yes,
I
go
would
ahead.
like to add something.
Uh-oh.
Just irritates Sue.
Sure.
Susan. And I think probably we need to discuss it, D, regarding meeting of soil and water and Bowser.
Okay.
I got a phone call this morning.
That's on the agenda already, right?
Well, I wasn't sure if that Wetland Conservation Act is with you.
That's really what it's about, I think. Yeah, we could just discuss it at that time.
That's fine.
Okay.
Well,
So,
we'll let it go.
okay, B will be the only item then, no addition?
We'll just bring whatever Mark has at that point.
Okay.
And I wasn't sure about that. Maybe that's why they called me.
I think that's what it's about, yeah. Anyway, okay, so the agenda is motion by Commissioner Betts, second by Houston. Yep. Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion, agenda is approved. The consent agenda for today, does anyone have anything they'd like to be removed for further consideration?
I'll make a motion to approve consent agenda.
Motion by Commissioner Delighted.
I'll second that.
Second by Commissioner Potter.
You are such a roll.
Okay, further discussion, nothing? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Our timed agenda this morning, we are up to Mr. Bob Hebel, our auditor treasurer. Good morning, Bob.
Hey, good morning, Board. You'll notice on the consent agenda, we had a whole bunch of transfer of tobacco licenses. That's where one company is being bought out by another. On the agenda today is, we call it approval of a tobacco license for the backyard liquor. These are new owners, so therefore they basically are buying a new tobacco license. So, asking you to approve a tobacco license for backyard liquor, formerly St. Michael Liquors in the city of St. Michael.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the transfer of the liquor license for backyard liquor. I'll second it.
Motion by Commissioner Potter, second by Commissioner Delighted. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The transfer is approved.
Board, the second item on the agenda is, in moving forward with providing the election equipment for our municipalities, the first thing that we have to do is get that software. This is lining up with IT's project list so that they can get it installed and ready to go. We're hoping to use those poll pads for the township election. So I'm asking you to authorize me to sign the software licensing agreement with no ink. This is the e-pulse software. This is the kind of the brains of that poll pad where we can communicate with the poll pads and on the field, and they can communicate back with us.
I'll make a motion to accept it.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Delighted, second by Commissioner Houston. Further discussion? Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, go ahead. What was the cost on this again? Do you remember?
Was it $5,000 for the e-pulse software?
Yeah, it's
It's 5,000, yep.
And then there's an annual $1,000 license for it.
Yep.
I mean, there's more significant costs. We are applying for the grant coming up, one of our board meetings. You're going to approve our grant application to the Secretary of State for the hardware of the elections, but this is the software part of it. That's not eligible for grant reimbursement.
What time of year is the hardware supposed to start coming in roughly? Do you have any?
The grant period closes in December, so we're hoping to have our application in there, awarded our grant, start acquiring our poll pads January, used for the March township elections.
Okay. Anybody else? Go ahead.
Any other questions? Sorry.
Anything else? Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next up.
The third item, Board Lindsay put together kind of like a year-end schedule that we distributed out to the departments, but the one that I need approval from you is to set the cutoff for claims. Again, this is to set a cutoff for those claims so that they would appear on the revenue expenditure budget reports. These are the cash transactions. I think with Lindsay here, I think we're going to get closer to educating the board on the modified accrual basis. But for now, I need you to approve the cutoff for claims at 12 o'clock on December 27th. With the new procedures, we're able to go closer to the end of the year for that. So
I'll make a motion to approve the final cutoff for 2017 claims as 12 p.m. on December 27th.
Motion by Commissioner Delight and second by Commissioner Potter. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 4, Bob.
yes, number 4, and board, I have Matt Detchen down here. Jan really is the orchestrator of this action. These are housekeeping things that we need to do. The number 1 is to approve the ditch assessments for 2018. In the packet, you have the said ditches that we've incurred expenses on. So we're going to ask you to approve that list of assessments we spread against the ditch systems.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, go ahead, Commissioner Delight.
Bob, why is ditch 10 so high?
Why is which one?
Ditch 10?
Ditch 10?
I didn't think we did any maintenance on that one at all this year.
Yeah. Jan's saying we did do some maintenance on that.
They did a clean out at the outlet right by Lake Ann and cleared a lot of trees out.
Is that what they did?
Consolidated land.
Was the vendor.
Also.
Okay,
Okay.
come up here.
If I remember correctly, Consolidated Land Care was like 24,000, and then Dino's did a small portion too. That was like 3,000, if I remember correctly.
Okay. Okay, sounds good. Go ahead,
Chair,
Commissioner Houston.
so if there's a ditch that's not on here, like ditch 13, so what does that mean? I was trying to figure out, it says that they would not be sent a letter, but if...
Well, Jan's going to talk about some of the systems have incurred expenses, but they're under a threshold that I'm going to get to further down here, but go ahead.
Okay.
County Ditch 13 is not on the list because we have ordered a reestablishment of records on that and a redetermination. And I checked with Kurt Dieter from Rinky Noonan, and he said because we are ordering the reestablishment of records to be able to do a redetermination, that those expenses can be held until we have the new list of benefited landowners. And then anything under $500 total assessment for a system, I did not include. I'm going to hold those over until next year.
Okay, I wasn't sure where they fit in, I kind of forgot about the...
So that must be the same for 36 then?
Yes.
Okay. There's, because we're in the process of redetermination, so,
Correct.
okay.
So those expenses that we incur from the viewers and everything can go against the new rolls of benefited landowners.
Okay.
Hey, Jan, on ditch 10, none of the work from the consultant is included in that amount, is it? No. Okay.
You mean ISG or?
Right.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
or who we're working with soil and water on?
No.
ISG.
Right.
ISG, okay. Just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
And then, Jen, would it be
You should have waited a little longer till the test got over.
Yeah, we keep bringing you back like Kojak, not Kojak, Columbo, I think.
Just one more thing.
One more thing, yeah. Would it be beneficial, do you think, for us to have all of the ditches and then just have 0 on some of them, so we could see? Like, because people are wondering, on ditch 13, to just list it and then put 0.
There's money in those ones, they just haven't got the benefit of roles determined yet, so they can't
Or
send them
just
out.
the
I can do
one
that.
note, like you told us what it was, so just maybe a note,
Yep.
pending redetermination.
Something, just so we can kind of have a feel.
Or what we could do is add eligible expenses and then go to the assessment.
Something like that, yeah. It would save you coming up to the podium.
We'll have our little
Fingers
ditches
left
running.
in.
Okay, thank you, Jen.
Thanks.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to
approve the ditch
approve the ditch assessments for 2017,
For 2018 or is it 2017?
2018.
or 2018, okay.
Okay, for 2018.
And Ward, just to clarify, these are expenses incurred from October 1st of 16 to September 30th of 17. We do this so that we can work with our sister counties in allocating our expenses.
But they'll be
They'll go on
assessed in-
2018
Right,
tax.
so we'll have some expenses in October that are going to go on to the next year.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. So, motion by Commissioner Dutch.
I'll second that, Mr. Chair.
Second by Commissioner Potter. Further discussion? Nobody has any questions on that yet?
Ward, the second item is to...
We got to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Sorry about that.
It's housekeeping, but we need to set the assessment, the interest rate. Again, any special assessment that's going to be spread over multiple years is going to have, or over the current year is going to have an interest rate. Did you bring that down? The interest rate is 2.33%, and that's tied to the court's interest rate. I believe it's like 8/12 of the 4% that we have, but it's prescribed in statute as to what we should be charging these ditch assessments.
And then can we make that lower, make it, or not, or?
You can, in this case, you're the drainage authority.
But I think 2.33 is probably, it's just, I'm thinking down the road though, when we do start to do a lot of maintenance on these ditches, I think there's going to be more people that are going to have to spread it out, and I'd like to be as, easy on them as we could, but 2.33 is not
Especially
bad.
since nothing's been done for a couple of years.
And Commissioners, if I could add to that, when we get to that point of funding some of these larger repairs,
yeah.
we're going to have this dialogue of, do we use our money to front the costs, because we'd be foregoing investment income, or are we going to bond for it?
Right, and if we do that right, maybe we won't get a hit on the auditor's report either.
Right.
All right, so setting the interest rate, we have a motion for that?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Commissioner Delight, set the interest rate at 2.33 for, is that for 2018 or?
Yep, 2018 would be
Okay.
2.33.
I'll second that, Mr. Chair.
Second by Commissioner Potter. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next up,
Yeah, the next item would be, and this is just to be consistent with the way we've done in the past, that any individual parcel assessment that exceeded $500, we would allow them to spread that over 3 years.
and then they would incur interest the last 2 years.
Our experience is that they tend to pay them off right away, but
Okay.
we're affording them the opportunity to spread over 3 years.
I'll make a motion to approve that.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Delight, second by Commissioner Houston. Further discussion?
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead, Commissioner
This is
Potter.
still a lot less expensive than the young people that have to take out student loans, which that interest rate is ridiculous. Just want to make that statement because I think that's a big problem.
It is.
Sounds good. Okay, further discussion, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Next up,
Yeah, Board, the next item is just identifying the cost of it takes us to issue these assessments. So what we're saying is any parcel that has a cost of $4.99 or less, that we just rounded up to $5. And then any assessment under $25, we don't mail out the notice, we just put it onto the taxes. This is consistent with what we've done in the past. But if I have a $2 assessment, we're going to round it up to $5.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Under the taxes, on the tax statement, it says ditch, whatever.
Other taxes.
Yes, you will see the individual listing of fire assessment, ditch assessment, stuff like that.
Fire assessment?
Yeah, you may have a fire assessment, any assessment you have.
You have a fire assessment?
The fire dues are paying the
Yeah,
property.
you're out of townships.
Townships do, yeah.
Your city folk.
City.
Yeah, yours are all free.
It's free, yeah.
Yeah, actually, right. Oh, absolutely, yeah. Don't have to, doesn't cost us a dime.
The townships pay all your fees.
Right, yes.
Not in our, not in our district.
Not in yours, no. Okay.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the recommendation of Auditor Treasurer.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Potter, second by Commissioner Delisle. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Number E.
Yeah, the last item is, this is identification of the unallocated costs. Now, remember earlier this year, we did transfer money from the general fund to the county ditch fund, the general fund. So there are expenses that we're incurring on behalf of the systems. The Wright Noonan retainer, the half of Matt's salary and benefits, the annual maintenance for drainage DB, and then Mike, when he goes to some training and stuff like that. Those are costs that we have charged against the general ditch system. So what we're proposing is, and this is after our drainage conference that we had in September, we identified these from other counties that they allocate those expenses to the system. We're only incurring them because of those systems. So what I'm asking is to approve the following allocation of those items. We spread against the ditch systems, and we're going to spread it on the miles, number of miles.
I think that's a fair way to do it, because if you did it on the value, the ditch that was redetermined would end up paying more than an older system and stuff, so.
Right, those who haven't been redetermined would like you to do that, but
Yeah.
those who have been redetermined don't want you to do that.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the following allocations to the general fund for the ditches.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner Delisle.
Second that.
Second by Commissioner Hewson. So, Bob, do we have a fund that, is this going to, you know, because we're kind of borrowing money, should we actually set up something where we do a transaction where we put some money in a fund designated for it? Or when we do this, is this, because we get that little hit on our audit all the time, is this going to give us another little gig?
Right, there's two answers to that comment. One, we do have the general ditch fund. We do have about $15,000 in there to front these costs.
Okay.
The state auditor's comment is about the fact that we have ditch systems that have negative fund balances.
Yeah.
Unless we start building up repair fund balances for them, we'll always be in the situation where we incur the cost and then bill them for that.
After.
It's a culture change.
Yeah. Is it, I mean, it's just something that maybe we should talk about at some point, you know?
Great example is 10.
It's not, it wouldn't be a big thing, it's just to get it into a positive balance, right?
How much, the hardest thing is, that'd be conversation, how much do you collect to just have sitting there? Because you don't really necessarily know how much work we're going to do at this point on any one of these ditches.
Well, that's the thing.
Well, and here's a great example board, County Ditch 10. We know that there's a large repair coming, but we're also redetermining who the benefit landowners are.
Yeah.
If I start requiring costs now,
The old rules, it wouldn't be
fair.
good.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we'll let that one go for now.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, go ahead, Commissioner Potter.
Issue with on that, if we pre-fund these, I believe that's going to raise bigger flags with the auditor's office than anything else, because we need to know what the expenses are first. Of course, they're going to be negative till you get that, and then you collect. It's just one of those accounting anomalies that this is a much safer way of going about it.
I agree.
And once
Commissioner Potter, I'll say that's how some counties have gotten away with the comment. They start building up advanced balances, so we can do it, it's just...
But I think you're right, though, that comment about the redetermination, you know, because otherwise you would be building that fund up with the old rules, and the new ones would be more fair, so I think maybe we'll hold off on that till we do get our systems redetermined, so, thank you. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign, motion carries. Hey, it is 9:20, and I see Mr. Dan Larson just came in, right? Come on up. And,
We're never right on time.
we're down. We run a tight ship here. We go. I could introduce Mr. Larson here. Dan is Executive Director of the Rural Minnesota counties, and I know I've had conversations with him in the past, and I was, because my district is very rural, and I said I have more in common, I think, with the rural townships in my district, and I would like to be a part of your organization, and I couldn't because they had the bylaws that were, if you were over a certain population, we were excluded, and Wright County was higher. And I said, work on that, and Dan did, so he's going to tell us all about it today. Good morning, Mr. Larson.
Mr. Chair and members, thanks a lot for letting me come here and talk to you. I know we've had side discussions with a couple of you at least, and Wright County does now, in our 20-year organization, does hold a distinction of being the only single county that the board has ever changed a policy for directly. So that's something. So we do appreciate the interest, first of all, in Minnesota rural counties. We are 31 rural counties that advocate, in the only organization that advocates specifically for rural county concerns. So, state capitol, you know, there's a lot of divisions. Everybody gets to come under the dome and talk about what's best for them and advocate. So, a lot of divisions, Democrat, Republican, a lot of rural metro. There's a split. You have to recognize that. We don't lead with it, but but rural county organizations, our group believes, needs an advocate organization to be in the room, to have a coordinated leadership oriented group in place with lines of communication that can set up priorities and advocate for them. At the same time, to be able to react to things that are negative and push back, and again, use that leadership and communication capability. If I might, let me talk about a couple of issues that will illustrate what we think are the benefits of having a group like MRC. We started off, again, 20 years ago this year, in April of 2017, and really about 18 months before that, a group of 5 little counties that I had to really go to the map and look to as far as where they were. They were deep rural counties. Came to me and said, we have a problem. The state wants to impose a one-size-fits-all wetland plan for the whole state, regardless of whether you're dry land and you've drained all your lands, ag lands, the south and southwest, or if you're literally a sponge and you've got 80% of your wetlands remaining. Everybody would have to, on projects that you wanted to do, everybody in the state would have to mitigate at the same ratio. So I had to look at where those counties were, and I said, who is supporting of this? Well, starting with Governor Carlson, all the sportsmen's groups, all the environmental groups, a lot of advocacy, and this issue had rounded the bend. This was happening. I said, to be able to stop this, to be able to slow it down first is what you want to do. You're going to have more than just you 5 counties. Who else doesn't like this? And I said, well, it's very unpopular. Do you think other counties would join up and help us push back? Well, we'll see. So I put a resolution together, and I wouldn't do this. It was something in my naivety early on. I said, let's do a resolution that says you won't support it. It says you will not abide by the Wetland Conservation Act. And put that out there and see if we can get others to do it. The first 5 did it. We did news releases. Another 5 or 6 did it. Pretty soon, within several months, we had 23 counties that said we will not abide by the Wetland Conservation Act. Well, what that did, it got people starting to think, well, maybe this isn't a good thing. We stopped the momentum from going one way, turned it back by organizing. And in the end, it took 18 months, but we got other groups back to the table, Builders Association, the Chambers of Commerce's, and back at the table who thought this issue was rounded the bend. And they came to the table and developed what has now become a model, a three-tiered wetland mitigation plan that has become a model for the rest of the country. That was 20 years ago. More recently, we've done a few things in that time. When the constitutional dedication, when the Lessard-Sams constitutional dedication issue was on the ballot and passed, I knew there was going to be an additional $400 million coming into the state that wasn't there from this sales tax that we imposed on ourselves. Clean water, outdoors, parks and trails, and arts. They added arts in there. So out of that, I said to the group, there's a lot of additional dollars coming in. There's an angle for you in here. And when the money was being, for lack of a better term, distributed, carved up, there were two entities at the table for parks and trails. And those were the DNR and Metro Parks. So I said, I think you have an angle. Let's go build. Let's go get the money, and we'll build a brand new state-of-the-art regional park and trail system in greater Minnesota. That's where I met Mark. Right after that, you've got a great park and trail director, as you know. Mark is a great friend of mine, and I met him in the hallways soon after that. And we went to work. And those of you that were around at that time know that was a long, protracted, difficult fight. But again, it took another 18 months, and we ended up with 20% of those dollars. And we have now created a commission and funded a commission that is building a state-of-the-art regional park and trail system in greater Minnesota. One other side, and then I'll be anxious to take some questions. But when the government shutdown occurred in 2011, everybody went into negotiations, and what came out of that was a formula change to how we fund vulnerable children and adults, those grants. Whatever reason, the chair of the House committee at that time was out of Anoka County. As part of the negotiations, no public input, the VCAA formula changed, and it was to the detriment of many rural counties, and Wright County in particular. So you actually hold two distinctions. One is for that population change, and the second is the highest number of benefited annual dollars to come out of the vulnerable children and adults formula of any I've seen this summer. And I've been using the parks and the VCAA numbers as means of telling other groups what we do. So you came out very well on that. Came out pretty good on the parks, and I just wanted to kind of reiterate who we are and what we do. We are reaching out this summer. The group sent me out. They said we need to grow. And so we've picked up 2 members at meetings just like this that said, well, let's join today. And we have another 5 or 6 that we're in the budget for. So I just want to thank you again for letting me come.
And Dan, I guess where I'm coming on this, I would like to have Wright County join up so we could participate more in the formulation of policy with the rural counties, because what happens a lot of times is you do come up with something that's going to benefit the rural area, and you have the forum to bring that to the Association of Minnesota Counties, a bigger organization, and show that this is something needed. And I think that's where I think I would like to be on the ground floor of it, kind of helping formulate those those policies to bring forward, so go ahead, Commissioner.
Chair. Dan, I had a question about the Minnesota Rural Counties projects a Vulnerable Children and Adults Act revenue savings to our county of $443,446. So I was just wondering how that works, or you know, how when they changed the formulas and that kind of thing, it was costing us more money. I kind of was not aware of that.
You're going to get into the nuts and bolts of, you're going to get me in trouble if you get me talking about exactly what the formula things were. I know who I went to, though, and that was one of our members' human service directors, and she's very well respected, and she was a part of the group that worked with Maxa on this, and so I went to her, and I'll be glad to give you her name and number, and I can follow up on this, but I worked with a human service director, and that's where I got the number. She was out of Pope County.
Okay. Yeah, I was curious when I was reading this materials.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Go ahead, Commissioner Potter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just for the public, I have met Dan on numerous occasions. We've had many talks. Again, like in who I am, I've disagreed at times, but we've had more of a consensus how to do things early on. If it's met Dan, a couple of his counties he represents, we're doing that in metro versus rural, assaulting old wounds, and he did get them to stop doing that, because if we're going to all get together here, we need to quit bringing that up. We need to move forward. And he was instrumental in doing that, and I appreciate that, because when I'm down there advocating for Wright County, which is a rural county in the eyes of that, we're the first line of defense against the Met Council here. Appreciate the things you're doing just to help us and help our cause and help people in greater Minnesota. I do want to resort in Douglas County, they're a member of it, and everybody speaks highly of being a member, and so do the county commissioners I talked up there. They are recognized as an affiliate with AMC because they had to change some of their bylaws or something to match the legislative agenda, basically. They'll say no more on this. I think it's a good partnership because it's what it brings to us, and what, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. You know, you need to have a seat at the table to see what's going on. And we need to protect our rural counties just like the metro. We need to figure out more ways on how we can work together, because the metro has their issues and we have our issues. But when you get down to St. Paul, if you don't play nice in the sandbox, nobody gets anything. And just stop that, because we're not going to be able to stop the metro from doing what they do. We just want to have them so they don't have the power to impose their will on us. And that's the whole idea behind it. Mr. Chair, I would support this, but my question to Dan is, how much does it cost Wright County to join? Based on population? Is it just a set fee?
Well, just a couple of notes on that. We're a pretty conservative organization. 20 years we changed, prior to September, we changed our dues structure one time, and that was 10 years ago, and raised it flat. It had been a flat $2,000, so we raised it up to $2,100 10 years ago. And now we're starting to get into a little bit more counties, and we're starting to grow, and looking ahead to what we need. We changed our formula again in September for the second time, and did a little more population based. So for Wright County to join our group for 2018, the dues would be $2,900.
So, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Commissioner Potter.
Thank you. Dan, so is there a base level fee and then population after that? Is it, the formula is just solely on population, or is there a base fee plus population aspect of this?
We did factor in population, and we did it in 10,000 increments. So 10,000 and below, they elevated $100, and we did up to I think it was the 4,000 tier, and then those above 5,000, if I'm remembering, 50,000, we just put a flat $800 fee on top of the 2,100.
So as we grow right now with the structure, our dues wouldn't increase.
Yeah, we didn't anticipate 124,000 people, Mr. County joining.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So is it safe to say that Wright County would be the largest contributor to this?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay. That's the short and the long answer?
Well, I do have to, there's one more component. We did put a piece in there going forward that we don't have to revisit this every 10 years. Going forward, we're going to tie any additional increases to what AMC would increase. So we'll just, every year, when AMC reviews their dues policy and tags on an additional dues charge, we're going to do that same rate.
Okay. Fair enough. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And one thing I kind of talked to it before, Wright County is the perfect example of this, if you want to call it a competition, but this disparity between the metro and the rural. I mean, we have it right here. We see it on the board a lot of times where it's issues that are, we have a totally urban commissioner that comes out to do ditch meetings, and I appreciate that because he gets to feel of what some of the issues that are going on, and this organization I think will benefit Wright County to help highlight and show some of those things. And a lot of times we can work together with the metro and clean water and better lakes. I mean, it's all things that we all want. And a lot of times that's, putting our heads together and it can come out to a better solutions.
Agree.
Okay. I don't know if it's on the agenda. I don't know if it would be in order to have a motion to join, or is it something that the board would want a little more time to think about, or I guess I'll have to hear from you guys. What do you think?
Well, the other thing would be funding.
Yes.
Since the budget's been set, where's funding coming from?
Yeah. It could be that we join, kind of put it out there that we'll join next year or whatever too. It's not a huge amount though. I mean, gosh, we just found 700,000 for Trailblazer. I mean, it just doesn't seem like it would be a huge hit to the budget,
Mr. Chair, when do your dues? Is it the first of the year? How's that work?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner, first of the year, same as AMC.
Mr. Chair, I bet Mark back there will find $2,900 in savings in his campground to join this.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Commissioner Pyle.
For the fellow commissioners that know Randy Kramer for Renville, he was a little bit on the skeptical side too, because I talked to him about this a little bit. And he did it on a one-year trial basis to see if they actually had value. And they decided there was value in being part of this organization. And at that time, he was, don't know. The presentation was made. They did it on a one-year trial basis, and they decided it was worthwhile being in. And he's about as cautious a person as you're going to meet.
Yes, he is.
Yeah, on things. So to me, that speaks volumes to the organization, what you have here. And Dave Kircher, I know him, served on the library board with him. And being a former sheriff, if he thought it wasn't worth a hoot, he'd be taking the next train out of Dodge here, because he doesn't put up with anything if it's not legit. He's another real conservative person he's got to see. And the one I know the best is Jim Stratton for Douglas County and all the commissioners up there because of my resort up there. And they just sing praises about what's going on here. I don't believe it's going to send a bad signal to the metro if we were to be part of this organization. Because Wright County is unique, a collar county that's half urban, half rural in its nature, and it's probably going to be that way for quite a while. For more likely, except for the one on the other end that might still be in office, the rest of us will be long out of office. And I would, Mr. Chair, I would entertain the motion to join the organization on a one-year trial basis again to make sure we're getting value for this. And the $2,900, I don't know if it's budget 100 or where we'd have to find this.
Lee, what would you recommend if we did want to join this?
In future years, I think it'd be best to set up an individual line in budget 100. This year, we could look at perhaps professional services. I was just trying to pull up the commissioner's memberships, dues, and fees to see the balance on that line, but going forward, I think 100 would probably be the best if we carved out a specific spot for it.
Okay.
I'll second it.
So that was a motion by Commissioner Potter and second by Commissioner Delighten to join with the funding this year coming out of professional services. Lee?
I would assume.
And then it will be brought up at budget next time if we were to join. Okay, further discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. So, thank you.
Thank you.
You just got to keep working and.
Much, I should have come sooner.
Well, Dan, I just said I've been following it since I've been on the board, and I know, I think my comment to you was you're going to have to change your rules because they had a cap at 50,000, I think it was, wasn't it? And I said, you're going to have some of these out-state counties that are, out there that are going to grow, and you're going to start losing membership, and pretty soon you won't have anybody. So I think he took my advice anyway.
If you look, the county directly to your south, McLeod County, has been a longtime member, and it's kind of in that Collar County zone, and we've got others I visited along the river that we're pretty sure are going to join, kind of in the same circumstances as Wright County. So you're correct, Mr. Chair. We are already seeing that. I want to thank Susan, too, for working with me on the little spotty on getting her the information, but thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your presentation, too.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Dan. All right. Items for consideration. Lee, you know what? I don't know if I asked you if you would do the committee of the whole minutes. Did I?
We spoke briefly, yes.
Oh, okay, good. Would you be able to do those minutes first?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The committee of the whole met on November 15th. All Burrell, Houston, Delighten, Potter, Vetch, and myself, as well as Osselson, Othman, Cooper, Hevela, Hoffman, Kreiser, Mattice, Lindsay Meyer, O'Malley, Partlow, Sandine, Tagaro, and Vate. The first topic was the jail billing and collections process. I'll kind of summarize here if that's okay. We had some, Shauna Athman, the sheriff's business manager, indicated we have some debt related to booking fees and medical charges back to 2012. The debt was originally under a collections agency that we formerly worked with where there were some issues. And they're currently under a restitution order with the sheriff's office. They had sold that debt to another agency without notifying the sheriff's office. So the second agency had provided a report on the outstanding debt, and most of that debt is unfortunately not collectible due to the age of the debt. So approximately $285,000 of this debt was incurred in 2012 and would not legally expire until 2018. This would be type things such as inmates may not have addresses, hard to contact, but may possibly still be in regular contact with jail personnel, so it really depends. So the request was for the county board to take no action, to request permission for the sheriff's office not to take action on collecting this debt because it's unknown whether the agency sold it or not. Some cost analysis was done on the time for staff to go and track down and verify the existing remaining debt and track down the individuals, and it was felt that it would not be cost effective to do so. So the recommendation was to authorize the write-off of the old jail debt, which was estimated to be as much as $285,000. The second item on the meeting was credit card acceptance and policies. Again, I'll give kind of a quick overview here. This has been a project that's been on the table for a while and is coming to fruition. Auditor Hevela said the board approved the purchase of the software for electronic billing on payments through Paymentus. This project, as I mentioned, began planning in about August of 2014 to have a county-wide credit card acceptance system. So the project's in 3 phases that were outlined in the materials. Kind of gave some summary of why Paymentus was chosen as the vendor as they negotiated the best exchange rate at 2.35% on the fees. And we talked a little bit about minimums of the credit card fees. Credit card acceptance policy, as you saw earlier in today's meeting, was placed on the agenda for approval. It provides guidelines on how departments will work with the credit cards and what type of things are eligible to be used for payment by credit card and some of the terms of that. Had some discussion about minimum transactions fees. With the 2.35%, the minimum charge will be $1. So anything under $42 will be assessed to the credit card holder. Depends on some of our transactions that the county has. We can absorb fees on some of those, but not all of them. An example of that is with property taxes. We must charge the actual value of the cost.
On that same paragraph, Lee?
Yeah, go ahead.
That bottom line, Myra said they're automatically passed on to the credit card company. And that's not true. They're automatically passed on to the card holder.
Clarification, those fees don't come to the county, they stay with the credit card provider. So they are assessed against the card holder, which is kept by the company.
Yeah, but the way this is written, I think it needs to be clarified. It's the card holder that's actually paying that fee. And I don't think that, the way it's written here, I don't think that clarifies that very well.
I would propose then we change that last sentence. Meyer said they are automatically passed on to the credit card holder or card holder. That'd be an acceptable revision?
Yep.
Okay. Again, kind of summarizing some of the discussions that took place. We did talk a little bit about some of the revenue that could be lost and gained potentially by credit card transactions. The handout was provided kind of outlining that in the materials. Additionally, we did not we used to not accept credit cards for payments in the License Bureau, but we did provide an automatic teller machine in that area. Now that a credit card vendor was determined, the Auditor's Treasurer Office will likely apply to the state to accept credit card payments at the License Bureau for transactions. So the next step was to initiate a partnership to work with Paymentus and gather information from each of the departments and compile the information technology requests. Paymentus will train Meyer and other staff members in the Auditor Treasurer's Office and then designated employees at each department about their system. Paymentus will provide guidelines regarding how to present information about credit card payments on our website. So at that time, we're waiting for the final agreement from Paymentus. Departments will then be able to get into portals and view their transactions, while the Auditor Treasurer's Office will be able to see all transactions. We'll only be able to do payments for the amount due. We won't be able to do the cashback option, as you see at some retailers. So this was an informational only item. Credit card acceptance policy was placed on today's agenda for county board approval.
Mr. Chair, I'll approve the minutes, but I do have one question, Bob.
Okay, go ahead.
Bob, Lindsay was going to find out about the second swipe. Are we going to have, she found out anything about that yet? Are we going to be able to do it all with one card swipe, or are we going to have to do two?
Well, I don't believe that I talked to her, I don't think she's talked to the Paymentus, but I can find that out for you.
Okay. I'm just curious, because I would really like to figure out a way to be able to do it all. I can't see why we can't do that with our software or something, but just to have to swipe the card twice just doesn't make any sense.
And for what Commissioner Delarden is talking about for the public is when you would use your credit card, there's a fee that would be added. So they would pay the bill to the county and then have to run the credit card again a second time to pay just that fee.
Because it exceeds the maximum.
No, it's because, an example is in Monticello.
Yeah.
When you get your license tabs or something, they accept credit cards there. So they run it for whatever the charge of your tabs are.
Yep.
And then they run it again for the fee.
Yep.
And to me, that's just,
It would be nice just to one and then
It
tap the
should be,
fee.
right, the fee
That
should
second
be
one you're
automatic.
swiping through sometimes for like $3, $4, $5.
right. Well, in some cases, it's going to be $2.35.
Right.
Or actually, it'll be one case where it's $1.
Yeah.
Correct? So it's just kind of,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if they can't do it right now, it'd be nice if they would work on that and get it done. So
Mr. Chair, since I'm here, I thought I'd give you a quick update. We did negotiate different minimums. For credit cards, it's going to be $15,000. We looked back 3 years, our highest credit card transaction was $13,000. So we set that at $15,000. And our highest e-check was $113,000. So we set that at $125,000. So, but I'll find out about the double swiping.
Okay, and so you were,
I made the motion.
so about 2 minutes. And the recommendation?
No recommendation.
Oh, there's no recommendation, okay. And for the jail thing too, or?
That is a
Oh,
recommendation.
yeah, that's absolutely right. Forgot about the jail thing. Yeah, I'll accept those recommendations on the
Okay,
jail.
so motion by Commissioner Delarden to accept the minutes and the recommendations. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Commissioner Vetch. Further discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Commissioner Potter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In the jail billing collections process, it's, people look at that number and they might say, oh my gosh, you're just giving away money. But with the coming out of this, and I talked to Shauna a little bit about this, we'd be no better than like the IRS. They're chasing somebody spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to go after 500 or 1,000. That's basically what it'd be doing. Some people are just uncollectible, just the way it is. It's part of the cost of doing business, and sometimes you're better to cut your loss and move on instead of spending tons of money.
Right, the clientele that they have visiting their hotel sometimes are indigent and don't
Address
have.
unknown.
Right, yeah,
Resources.
they've moved away and
So
don't
just,
find them anymore.
just for the public, when they see this, they see that number, you can't spend $100 chasing a penny, you just can't do it.
I think some of them do think so they can get into jail to get their free medical, what they deem as free medical.
Okay.
Wasn't there excuse me, Commissioner Houston, when you were a jailer, wasn't there one that you would have that would come in that just would like a nice free place to stay?
Yes, there are a couple, but there is one that, can I just stay overnight? It's like, no. No, you cannot. We cannot put you in jail unless you're under arrest or have a warrant, so.
Kind of like Andy Taylor and
Yeah.
maybe
Yep.
they had Otis would come in.
Otis would come in, yep. That was in the old jail, so, yeah.
Okay. Alrighty, further discussion. Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Personnel Committee minutes, Commissioner Delarden, would you be able to take them?
It's pretty long.
Yeah. Based on 3 reviews for Jamie Gooden-Schwartz, the Health and Human Services Director, evaluations that the committee recommends are really going to meet expectations. So I make a motion to approve and accept those.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Delarden, second by Commissioner Houston, further discussion. Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries unanimous. Technology Committee, Commissioner Vetch.
I'm going to try and keep this as high level as I can because we got about 5 pages of minutes here. So IT met on November 15th. Members present were Commissioner Dahlheiden, Commissioner Vetch, Adam Tagaro, Lee Kelly, Jesse Miller, Christine Partlow, Todd Hoffman, Bob Hedela, Tony Rasmussen, Virgil Hawkins. Others present were Olga Strobel, Sherry Nelson, Connie May Cooper, Brian Esselson, Alec Halverson, Keith Triplett, Scott Wheeland, Jen Rassett. Quite a full room. First item on the agenda was Office 365. Office 365 is staying on track. They will be doing some testing within the departments over the next couple weeks. Next week, however, it will begin testing with the live accounts within the department itself. The entire IT department will begin transitioning December 7th through January into February. We'll begin the mitigation of all the other departments. Otherwise, the O365 project is a large initiative, but is staying on task. Informational only. Email retention update. The Office 365 email retention will be handled differently. Currently, we have email in Outlook for 1 year, then it is moved to NetMail where it is held for 3 years. In Office 365, Outlook will be saved emails for 3 years. After those 3 years, however, the email will be gone.
I think that it needs to get clarified in here regarding that the email has gone from the user's account.
The users, yeah. The IT has a, well, not all email, like permanent email from elected officials and things that meet the request or the statutes are held on a, what is that? I couldn't get the right word for it.
It's a different retention schedule for certain elected officials as well as certain key positions in the county based on statute.
And they have it into a system where they can't pull it back up and give it to you electronically, but if it was needed to be printed out, they could access it.
It's there for open data requests and stuff like that. It's just not available to us.
The question presented was, what to place in our Outlook email retention policy: 2 years, 3 years, 1 year. 2 years is the preferred, as it would provide more of the incentive for people to correctly store data. Did I get my page? Oops. Then 3 years, we felt that through discussion, if we did 1 year, people might hastily move emails and not keep ones that they pertinently should, and we thought 3 years people would just kind of backburner it for a long road and nothing would change. So 2 years seemed to be the overall mix. Members brought up the current limits on emails, and certain users received a high volume of emails resulting in data limits. They ended up archiving emails into NetMail to allow for efficient usage of their Outlook. There was also discussion on how to archive emails. Archived emails will be handled in NetMail. The initial plan was to phase out the NetMail midsummer, when we would be able to exit the maintenance renewal. It was suggested that perhaps we should retain the use of NetMail till the end of 2018 to allow for a smooth transition of the new mail system for end users. In case emails do need to be retrieved, action was Office 365 Outlook will be set at an inbox expiration of 2 years to be discussed at the next meeting. NetMail users, NetMail renewal period process to retrieve old emails and general inbox storage limits for a short time. So my understanding was that we were still coming back to the NetMail and what we're going to do with it. We were trying to figure out the cost, what we had to pay for, whether it was a read-only, Mark?
Yes.
Yep, for the current system. The ERP systems, the Enterprise Resource Planning Update. The ERP project has been assigned to the new IT business analyst, Scott Wheeland. Scott has been active in his research of the ERP system and background. Currently, he is analyzing the full inventory of applications and projects that have been affected by the ERP system. He is also looking at what the core functions of an ERP would be for the county. Scott has been meeting with other departments to gauge their take on the ERP as well. He will be presenting at the next Technology Committee meeting. And the action is to start Wednesday, December 13th, technology meeting. Did I switch a page?
No.
Yeah, to start the technology page, and to decide at the end of the 2017 if the county as a whole will pursue an ERP system.
Just on a side note, I was talking to somebody there in IT, and if we went with an ERP system, at this point, I believe it was 50% of the current projects that are on the IT list will be covered by an ERP system.
That's what I was understanding too.
Oh, was it? Okay. So, which is quite a bit of number. So this is very important that we make this decision by the end of the year to move forward or not, just so that IT can get it going. And
I think the real other part too is going to be, I'm interested to see on the cost side
Yep.
too, of the licensing sides that we're currently paying to.
yeah, so there'll be some cost comparisons. He's doing it'll be a good job.
We're getting there.
Good information.
All right. The fourth item on the agenda was the WatchGuard proposal. Deputy Hoffman presented the final quote on WatchGuard squad cam system. He stated that the biggest question while finalizing was how the video storage was going to be handled. One option allowed for WatchGuard to store the video on one device, noting that there would be no backup of this system in an event of failure. The second option was for an on-site storage provided by the county IT department. The storage would begin at the LEC with a secondary backup almost simultaneously done at the GC. This allows for a better protection of the data as well as creating a platform to build upon. If the county decided to proceed with future body cams, the option of the IT department handling the storage was preferred. The project as presented included the technology to wirelessly upload video data as soon as a squad car enters the LEC garage. The proposal costs begin with the 2017-2018 would include outfitting 20 squads, 20 squads, I don't think that's a typo. All the backup software and the initial software configuration coming to $209,000 and some change. The 2019-2020 expenses were presented at $123,962 and respectively, which each additional year will be, which outfits 20 additional squads. The final year, 2021, would be $110,000. So basically, we're looking at upfront costs. We have a little bit higher because we have the IT back end, which puts us at $209. Then we'll be at $123 for the 2 years, and then the final year we'd be at $110,000 to outfit all the squad cars.
Assuming that we stay with.
Assuming we don't add any more squad cars, correct?
Yeah.
Which, if the cities keep contracting more hours, that's probably likely. The action was to move forward to send CIP dollars on the implementation of the WatchGuard squad cams as presented by Deputy Hoffman. Chief Deputy Hoffman. Chief Deputy, they're missing chief in there.
Mr. Chair, so I was going to say we need to add Chief Deputy in the two places.
Yeah. All right. Project portfolio discussion of the CPI Crop Productivity Index. As part of the project portfolio, on request of Assessor Rasmussen, Tagara brought the CPI project to the committee to review. Rasmussen request was to implement the CPI application by March 1st, 2018, as that is when his team will begin getting into the field to do analysis. He stated that as part of the project process, the project request form indicated the CPI project renewal was at level 1. Discussion, we had a lot of discussion back and forth within the room on what resources we had within IT department to do this. The main concern from the IT department stems from the present project load with completing the Office 365 and being able to get that done in a timely manner. Triplett stated that the CIP tool could be used for farmland, wetland, and ditches. Halverson noted that perhaps to move the project along, WSB, the vendor, stated that we could start with a cloud version similar to what the Schneider does with the Beacon. WSB did stress having the full application would be much better for users than the cloud version, but if we don't have the resources, currently within IT to do it, we could do it via a cloud version. Members expressed interest in hearing about the cloud version and cost and usage, along with more information about IT time needed for the project. Action is to continue discussion of a start date of a project at the next meeting.
Sir, can you elaborate a little bit? I mean, it's an assessor tool. Do they feel that it's going to better, more accurately assess the value of farmland?
This has something to do with some new regulations that they have to do, and this basically saves them a lot of time.
Okay.
So right now, they're manually doing it, where this gives them, is that what it is?
Yeah, I'm trying to think, is it Stearns County? There's a county that's currently using the system. It's a fairly new system. But it tells you the quality of the land. Sandy, clay, loamy,
Yeah.
soil conditions, thank you.
This is supposed to be a huge time saver, is what it's supposed to be.
But does it take into account then whether the field is drained, whether it's tiled, and?
Yes.
From my understanding, it looks at all those conditions.
I don't know how it knows that.
And right. And if I remember correctly, the requirements are that the valuations need to be based off of
Land conditions.
crop
Yeah.
production.
Crop production, yep.
Okay, that's my question. Thank
So,
you.
we're hopefully going to be able to work something out with this. He was hoping for a March, but I think he said he would maybe settle for a April, May. We're still working with Adam and IT at the next meeting to see if we can flush out a,
Yeah, we'll have a better accurate idea next,
yeah.
in December.
Okay, all right, thank you. Next one.
All right, the sixth item on the agenda was the Zerker. Zerker notified the Sheriff's Office that they have been in the process of adding 3 local police departments to the access to the county's network via their application. Zerker would like this to be completed by the first of the year. This was not discussed with the county before Zerker initiated the contracts with the local PDs. Sheriff's Department will find out more details at a November 29th meeting with Zerker. Chief Deputy Hoffman stated that it will be a benefit to the Sheriff's Office, but may create some issues with the Attorney's Office and Human Services Department. From the Sheriff's perspective, it would have been beneficial to retrospectively be involved from the beginning of this process if Zerker would have notified them sooner. That was informational only.
And if you remember correctly, we offered it to those 3 cities.
Long time ago.
Before.
Well, we did it, but we thought it'd be an easier transition.
Right, and I think at that time, they had, maybe didn't have, they had different systems that weren't compatible
Right.
exactly, but,
So now they'll be exactly on our system.
right, and they're very actually happy with this whole thing.
Yeah, the other
But I
problem
didn't
is,
realize that our department hadn't been involved with that process, so.
Zerker not talking with the county about what the demand on our IT infrastructure is, and getting the cities to sign it.
Yes.
It's nice.
And now, had they acted on this sooner when we offered it to them, would it have been less cost to the county then?
Yeah.
So that's really not
Yeah.
very nice, I guess. I don't
Well,
know.
I think they maybe weren't, their systems weren't as old as they are now, and.
Well, we're going to make Zerker a year and a half, 2 years.
Since we've
Okay.
deployed, I think so. I'm sure the chief
Oh,
deputy
that's right, Chief Deputy's here.
respond.
When did we go live with
Why don't you
Zerker?
come up, Todd? Your voice just doesn't carry well, Todd. We need you at the microphone.
We're trying to give you FaceTime on the video.
I don't have enough command presence, sorry.
Yeah,
Approximately 2 years ago.
so it was just 2 years ago. So, yeah,
That was longer ago.
I didn't think it was.
Implement that.
We just started talking about it, I think, as long as we've been on
And
board.
Todd, you did have conversations with Ann and...
We did, and to be fair with the local police departments, they were with LETG, that company, and they were fairly, I shouldn't say new with that company, but they had invested a lot of money in that system. It wasn't until Zercher Technologies purchased LETG, that it,
That's already good.
it became one of those, what they call the end-of-life products that they weren't going to be developing much further, so it was best for the local police departments to start looking at transitioning to Zerker. So we're happy to have them on board, and we will work with IT, Zerker, and the local 3PDs to make this work.
Yeah,
Okay, sounds good.
that'll be good.
And the seventh item on the IT meeting was, it was proposed to begin the next meeting Wednesday, December 13th at 10:30. Response was to start at, or that was typo. It was to start at 10:30. Kelly questioned if it would should change all future meetings starting at 10:30. It was noted that Wednesday is committee day for commissioners, which is a time change might need to be taken into consideration for the other meetings. The location for the next meeting will be determined yet. So we're thinking about doing some of the meetings down in the IT conference room, but we're still kind of, it's a little bit cozy. Let's use the word cozy for it. For the number of people.
And the reason that one's being changed is because of the discussion with ERP. Because that's going to be quite lengthy probably at that point.
So Derek, response should be changed to request, is that it, or what would you said something was wrong?
Just going to read it, the response was to start at 10:30.
It's just more, it should just be agreed to start at 10:30.
It's agreed to start at 10:30, yeah. So.
You got that, Susan? Okay.
So then the other side of it was, Mark did a great job of keeping us on. We were done in less than 90 minutes for a 7-item agenda, which was pretty darn good for our IT meeting. We're still kind of having discussions on I think we talked about that last meeting about having more meetings in January to deal with some of the backlog.
Take about half hour.
With that, I will make a motion to adopt the IT minutes with its recommendations.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Rich, second by Commissioner Wyden. Further discussion? Mike, did you have anything?
No, I applaud the work of the IT committee for bringing us out of the smoke signal and blanket part of history into the modern world here. I remember when we had the IT committee and we didn't even meet. Remember, it was like a year? Yep.
And then I'm like, what are we doing here? And now I think it's a good thing that we're kind of getting things going now. I think having the board involvement is helping, so.
Yeah.
All right, further discussion. Seeing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. It is approved. Next up is to set a committee of the whole meeting for the Wetland Conservation Act. I'll just give a little bit of quick history for the board. The Wetland Conservation Act, the county is the local governing unit. We are in charge of enforcing the Wetland Conservation Act. And Wright County, when it came out in 1991, delegated it to our Soil and Water Board. And since I'm the commissioner that sits on the Soil Water Board, I've unfortunately had to witness some in my opinion, some very bad interpretations of the Wetland Conservation Act law. And I've tried different things to influence them, to get them to maybe, like when it's not going to affect water quality, when it's within the law, parameters of the law, to side with the landowner, let them, do it if it's not going to adversely. And I've just had I should say, it's just been frustrating for me. So we tried different things, and then anyway, we met as the Ways and Means Committee, Commissioner Houston and I, and we looked into different things to do, and if we brought it back to the county, this was one of the ideas. It would be a very elaborate doing. I mean, it would probably go to planning and zoning, like environmental services somewhere. They would have to hire all new staff, training, all the systems and everything. So that
Whatever you see from the state on it, 49,000?
it's not, it might be 40.
That was like 49,000.
It's not a lot, it's very minimal. But anyway, then we looked at having the Soil Water Board make, let's say, because most of these things, 90+% of the issues that come before the staff at Wetland Conservation, it's dealt with by staff. But when somebody believes that they are within the law, it it might get appealed to their board. Well, then we thought about to give the applicant the authority to appeal to the county board before it would go to Bowser. And after talking with our assistant county attorney, he said that's maybe not real fair to the applicant. It's just a lot of more process and more expense for them.
Mr. Chair, I think I will support a committee of the whole meeting on this, and we can discuss those finer details at that time.
Okay, but we did have, the reason Mark is going to bring something up, so I wanted to lay a little bit of, so I'm almost done here. But anyway, after talking with a guy from Bowser, who kind of oversees the soil waters a little bit, we looked at doing something instead of having that second appeal. Is just when it does come to an appeal, instead of going to the soil water board, it would just come to our board right here. And I'm losing my train of thought now, Derek, you interrupted me. But anyway, I was going to say, there's very few of these. I want to say on average, since I've been on the board, maybe 2 a year. Now, it could be 2 to 4, something like that. So, but I think it's a deal that then the other thing is too, we're not losing any jobs out there. The staff at Soil Water, we would contract with them, however, to do it. They would do all of the groundwork. They still have the record keeping and everything out there. So, but Commissioner Dahl, you talked with the guy from Bowser this morning, I guess, or?
No, from Soil Water, but I actually second this motion with the caveat that at this meeting, I would like to have somebody from Bowser present, and I wasn't sure if you
they could come anyway.
Well, I just think it would be good to hear all the different things, and I don't know if it would even be good to have Ricky Noonan here also.
It wouldn't hurt.
You don't think so?
Don't think you need him?
No, they don't represent us on Conservation Act.
No, but some of it's going to relate to ditches.
Muddy the water too much. Greg, I did want to say though,
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Dahl, Rinky Noonan periodically appears before the Soil and Water Conservation District, actually representing people that are making the appeals. So I think it'd be a conflict of interest for them to show up to discuss Soil and Water Wetland Act issues.
For us to hire them, yes.
And I think also for them to show up.
Right.
That they can't give you advice on that, they represent litigants.
But I'm going to disagree with you on that, Greg, though, because I think that either we could bring in a whole bunch of applicants that have been denied due process, in my opinion, or we could bring in an attorney that could say, here's some cases that here's some rulings that I think weren't done fairly or whatever. I think it'd be good for the board to hear that. And one of the attorneys up there did say that they would come to the meeting and it would just be on their dime. So.
If they want to come here, Commissioner Burrell, that's up to them, but I'm not going to specifically invite them. They're not our attorneys on water.
But it's a public meeting, they could come if
they most certainly can come just like anyone else.
I want to hear different opinions. Obviously, Chairman Burrell has a specific idea on wetlands. And Bowser's going to have a different idea. I would just like to hear conflicting ideas, possibly.
On both sides of the issue.
I totally agree with you, so.
Unless you have another suggestion of somebody else that we could have, I just kind of want to try and, having three legs to the stool.
Commissioner Burrell, Commissioner Dolan, it depends on where you want the discussion to go. If you want to get into the nitty-gritty of absolutely every application that we've had, we can bring in everybody who's had an appeal and we can talk about the higher level of how do you want the appeal to look at the end of the day, and do you want to revoke your delegated authority to the Soil and Water Conservation District? It's entirely up to the board which direction you want to go.
Yeah. But I think it's a conversation that we need to have, so.
What do the other board members think about it?
Well, I said we can't stop them from coming.
I don't know if we would need to bring in Ricky Noonan either.
He has to come.
Yeah, well, that's fine. But it just seems like it would be easier to keep it more simple, in my opinion, but that's fine if they want to come. They're not going to be necessarily presenting, but we can certainly ask some questions, so.
So I would strongly urge that we have an agenda set for that day and we stick to that agenda. So that we don't get out into the weeds.
No, I think I can, I'll give you my word that I'll keep it on task. Can you put that in writing?
I want to make sure that we stay on the task in this meeting as to whether it's in the interest of the county to do what you're proposing.
Exactly.
Or I don't want to get into each individual person's cases. 'cause that-
Mr. Chair.
Okay, sounds good. And now, for a date here, yes, Commissioner Potter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To answer Commissioner Dryden, if we're here to discuss, the Wetlands Conservation Act and that, we need to keep the first one really focused instead of getting in the weeds like you want to invite all these people, get different opinions. That might be a subsequent meeting after we get our first base, what we're looking at, what direction we might be thinking of going, would be a subsequent meeting after that, because otherwise you are going to get so convoluted, you're not going to be able to know which way the wind's blowing on this. As a person that's gone through this before legally, you want to keep this high level tight the first meeting to find out what exactly you're looking to get into, and then after that, decide which way you want to branch out.
You bring up a good point,
Yeah.
because it could get into the weeds
Yeah,
pretty easily.
I think so
quickly.
too.
Well, that's, yeah. Okay, so a date.
So, I would suggest that Lincoln Union not come at this point. But I think, Commissioner Potter's right that we will probably have additional meetings after the fact.
I think though where it would be valuable to have the attorney from Rankin Union is just on that high level plane to present things, I guess I need to make the case, unless you're just going to believe me on everything, that, that ain't going to happen. Okay, well then I need to have reinforcements.
Mr. Chair, do you have a suggestion?
Commissioner Burrell, members of the board, I want to caution you, Soil and Water Conservation District, you can disagree with their decisions, but they're an independently elected authority. We have a delegated authority too. And they have the authority underneath the Wetland Conservation Act that we have delegated to them to make decisions.
You are totally right, and every decision that they make is defendable, and you can come up with findings consistent with their decision, and I got all that. The other thing, though, I talk with, and I say we're getting in the weeds here now, but I talk with other counties and say, how does it work out for you? And I said, well, I have this, case, and I said, what would you do? Well, I just have the county board member that attends their meetings, talk to them, tell them to back off on that. And I said, that would work. He says, you're darn right it would. They know where their money comes from. Well, it doesn't happen here. We have a board that is not real responsive to the county, and the county overall is the local governing unit that affects wetland, and I want to make sure that we got that.
Yeah, the only problem I have, Chairman Burrell, is that, and you might find this hard to believe, but there's some conflicting rules regarding wetlands, DNR requirements, ditch.
Right.
Corps of Engineers, Wildlife, Clean Water Act.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I knew I was missing a couple other ones that have conflicting.
Okay, let's see if we can come up with a date. Lee, do you have any suggestions?
Well, we do not have a meeting on December 5th because of AMC conference. I don't know if you want to look into later that week, the week of December 4th, or move farther into December.
Why don't we just put it off until January? Or do you,
If we can get it in December, it might work.
I think it would be better. Why don't, how about December 7th? How does that look for everybody?
I'm going to be at a conference that day.
well, then that's the best time to have it.
December 11th.
Morning and afternoon.
All day.
So either morning or afternoon will be okay.
So you're on December 7th?
No.
Mr. Chair, we have,
11th? Monday the 11th?
Mr. Chair, I have
Yeah.
conflicts on the 11th.
Okay.
board meeting's on the 12th, we could have it after that.
Well, we have a space study.
We do?
I think, well, I have this as a question mark.
It's tentative.
That's
Landed on
what
that one, yeah.
11 to 12 is a tentative one.
The 13th, we're here for a committee.
We could do afternoon, 1 o'clock on the 13th.
That, just a caution, that's going to be a big committee day, so
Well,
just making it known.
we'll be here anyway, right?
Well, we should be done by 1 o'clock. If we're starting IT at 10:30, we should be done by 1. If we're not,
we'll
we
have
got
a-
some
Do you want to do 1:30 to make sure?
Well, I mean, you're going to have to throw different dates out, because we need to have Bowser and Soil and Water, so we want to make sure
I really don't need them. If they want to come, they can. I don't need them.
I mean, I'll do a 14th too if you want. That's a wide open day too, if you want to push it out to a separate day. I don't.
14th would have to be the morning for me.
And I have Public Works at 8:15, so it'd need to be about.
How about 1:30 on the 13th? That gives a little extra time in case committee stuff goes long.
All right. December 13th at 1:30. Do you want to put a backup date if you're trying to get other people to come? Or no?
What about the 19th for a backup after the board meeting?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
I would make that recommendation.
And for then what, 11 o'clock? 10:30? 10:30?
What day is that now?
On the 19th.
The 19th.
That might just be a better day, period. You know, if we have a really heavy committee day on the 13th, we may not want to be.
So you just want to, should we just move it to, just go for the 19th and use the 13th as a backup?
Try to make them work.
Well, let's put the 19th as our priority and then
We
the
can back up the
13th.
13th?
Yeah, backup would be the 13th.
Because a lot of it's going to depend on what day Bobby's going to be able to come.
Okay, let's do 11 o'clock on next week. 11 o'clock on the 19th, okay?
11 o'clock on the 19th? Okay.
Mr. Chair, I will make that motion. Schedule committee of the whole on the 19th at 11 o'clock.
Okay.
How will the 19th work for you?
Oh, no, I can't do the 19th. Scratch that. Gosh darn, good thing Charlie's going to be in the
Oh,
hospital.
that's right.
Let's go the 13th.
Okay.
13th, actually, okay.
13th at 1:30. Thank you, Coordinator Kelly.
It coordinates quite well.
I don't know, that meeting might be a lot easier on the 19th.
Do it on the 19th, yeah. Okay.
Work better for,
All right, so, Commissioner Hissom, did you want to make that motion?
Yes, I will make that motion to set it on the 13th at 1:30.
Tentatively. I'll second it, with that tentative in there.
Okay.
Who seconded that?
All right.
I did.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Hissom, second by Commissioner Ryan. We got it.
All I can say is I'm glad I actually do mine via my phone and in my computer, because otherwise I'd have a lot of scratch outs.
I know, I need to write more in pencil.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries, thank you. Yeah, we scratched that one on the 19th. By the way, Commissioner Doran, you'll be chairing that meeting on the 19th, so I think I told you that one already. Why didn't you tell me that when we...
I was hoping that you would forget. Our coordinator, we could have had a lot easier meeting.
Okay, advisory committee, advisory board updates.
How about the legislative priority?
Oh, did we miss something? Oh, legislative.
See, I just skipped right over me.
Well, Commissioner Doran, what do you have for us?
I don't know if you guys have been watching the news, and I still would like to invite our local representatives here and having our top 5 to 8 items that really affect Wright County as a whole. You know, from Health and Human Services, you know, whatever the situation is. I know there was one that just came across from the assessors and some requirements coming up. If you read the paper, that everybody's expecting that this legislative session will be an get nothing absolutely done unless things change between now and then. So, it might be a good thing just to remind them who they work for. But anyway, I'd like to do it sometime in January, probably mid-January. I don't want to do it in December. I'm going to give them plenty of notice to get invitations out to them all. And my suggestion is we'd have them sit up here and we would sit down there, have a discussion.
Yeah, okay. Do you have a date in January?
No, I don't. I was going to kind of leave that up to Coordinator Kelly, what he would think would be best.
With the legislators to see, make sure their schedule works with that.
correct.
Back to us.
I think it'd be good to put it out in January, as you said.
Correct.
Perhaps that, if we're doing a Tuesday, the 16th, or 20th.
You know, maybe we get them 2, 3, and kind of do a poll to see what works the best for the majority of them.
Our Januaries are pretty open right now. Why don't you just come up with a date that you think would work, and bring it back to the next board meeting?
And I told him one of them, he said, just make a date, and
That's
if they're available, but
I don't know.
You want to make sure at least have three or four of them here, otherwise if you only have two show up, it's not going to be as...
Very productive, hey. Coordinator?
I was just saying that I think I'll pick a date and reach out for their availability rather than trying to poll, as we'll have, quite a few schedules to try and arrange to make that date work. So I'll probably pick that 23rd date tentatively and see if they're available. That still gives approximately a month before session starts, so.
Yeah, that's right.
Also give us some
February
time.
20th.
Correct, February 20th is the first day of session. That'll also give us some time, as I've gathered a few from departments already of priorities. Correct. The board will have to meet and come to consensus on what those priority issues are.
Yeah, and I do want to keep it to a small amount. I don't want to throw in with the AMC and the LMC and all those sort of things. We need to figure out what is the most important things for Wright County to talk to them about.
I don't know if we even need a motion for this, but can you just take care of it, Lee, and just do your best there? Okay. All right, sounds good. Now, advisory committee, advisory board updates.
We have a minimum of 10 minutes to talk.
You guys just quit it. I'm just saying, we just keep
Already, I know.
Well, today we've got 1 minute, so
1 minute,
before, yeah.
Okay.
So it's got to be pretty fast.
So allocated out, you get 10 seconds.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. To start out, last Thursday was the one-year anniversary of drug court. And Commissioner Vetch and myself were there, and not only sat in on that and some of the successes and some of the near successes, and also went there, and they were pretty proud of what they did to help some of these people get back on track. That was really good. Wright County Economic Development Partnership met Thursday in Howard Lake and just discussed general things going on within the county. Moving forward, we have a new, and forgive me for getting her name right out now, they hired a new administration person. The last one resigned, and they've got a new one that's actually a little bit more in-depth, astute at social media. And forgive me for not remembering her name off the top of my head right now, but that's all I have, Mr. Chair. Pass enough.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Yeah, you did great.
when I was on the radio last Wednesday, I kind of highlighted some of the drug court, and so, yeah, it's a great program. I'm glad that it's working as successfully as it is. I was at the Safe Communities of Wright County meeting last Friday, and of course now Drive Wright has gone away, and they have initiated a new program, Wright Road and Wright Road for Teens, and ROAD is an acronym for Review of Acceptable Driving. It is referred through the courts, so it's no longer a diversion program where it comes from the deputy has the their ability to write a drive right ticket, as opposed to, if they attended the class and they wouldn't go on their record. This is actually referred through the courts, $75. It's a 90-minute class, and so we'll see how that's all going to play out.
Well, that's good.
It's for like first and second time DUIs to start with, and for teens and for the teen drive road, the Wright Road class, it could be petty misdemeanor traffic, and then maybe we'll move to other offenses such as driving after revocation, but for now it's first and second time DUIs. And we've had 7 fatalities so far this year. 3 were due to impairments, and a couple of unusual accidents. And so we'll hear more about that when we have our presentation. And the December is going to be the extra DWI enforcement in Minnesota. And here's this little elf who's gotten stopped and is doing field sobriety tests. So it can happen anyway, but this one says, wait until the guy with the workshop hear about this one. So it's a clean.
That's not going to be well, because he's way taller than that.
Yeah, it's not him. So that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I'll pass for now.
Mr. Chair, in the interest of time, I'll pass you, but I do have somebody from my district, and I don't know.
I'll recognize him at the end.
I'll bring back next week because I had a pretty expensive 3.5-hour trailblazer meeting, more than I can accomplish here in 30 seconds.
Okay.
And then we have a WCAT meeting today, but I want to keep everybody up to date on it, so.
Sounds good. Did we have anything that you want to bring before the board? If you do, come up to the podium.
If you'll indulge me for a few moments of your time, otherwise I could be asked to be included on next week's agenda. That was actually my intention today.
Yeah, we could do that too, because we are a little...
Lengthy, but in the interest of saving everyone's time, I just want to hand out some comments to Commissioners Dahlheim and Potter because, excuse me.
Okay.
Thank you for taking the time today, Commissioners. I appreciate it. I am a property owner in St. Michael, and I have some very deeply troubling concerns about the accountability and the administration of the sales tax funds toward a particular construction project that's being proposed. I have a very lengthy list of questions that I have not been able to get answers for from anyone, including the Department of Transportation. And no one in this entire process has shown me even the least bit of consideration, and I am the one who is looking at the largest taking, and I am an ag preserve, and I am protected under several different state statutes. So I would like to give you some written comments to ponder and consider.
Okay, and then
I would also like to find out how I can send emails to you guys, because it's really hard to find any information on how to contact you guys, even on the county website. It's pretty hard to find, like, where your individual emails, so I can send some things to you. I don't have enough for the whole class, but I will give you one. Since you left the meeting so quickly the other night, I didn't get a chance to even address.
We had a public hearing, thought we had to do that.
Okay, well, thank you. And I also have some other comments here from another resident who's concerned, and I would certainly expect some consideration in this process.
And why don't, after the meeting today, we'll have a talk with Lee, and we'll get something on the agenda.
Next Tuesday?
Yep, because we do have another meeting we're supposed to be at 10:30, so thank you very much, appreciate that.
And ma'am, could you give your name for the record?
My name is Darlene House, 4742 McIver Avenue Northeast, St. Michael, 55376.
And your last name is spelled?
Haus.
H-A-U-S, okay.
Thank you very much.
Please state this for the record.
Thank you.
Okay. Alrighty, and with that, I do believe we'll adjourn. We have a committee of the whole for salaries of elected officials at 10:30, and we'll begin that after a short break.